Hello, everybody. We're covering the new exclusive buyer representation agreement for Key Realty. This is an agreement, obviously. The purpose is an agreement to establish a relationship between the buyer and the agent. And this gives you exclusive right to handle the purchase of a property for them and assist them in the negotiations of moving forward under the following terms and conditions. It is notable that this contract is going to be used in both Michigan and Ohio, so there is only one contract you need to learn. So the term. So you will put the term in here. Number two, you're going to put the term in from the time period you're going to represent them. This can be a long term, a short term. I will make one comment in here. You can decide what the length of that term is. If someone wanted to be maybe your first meet them and they want a relatively short term, if you showed them a house and this was only for a week, it actually there's a protection period in here that we will go over. So it actually extends an additional 6 months beyond that to any homes you showed them. So I wouldn't worry too much about having very, very, very long terms. If you do show them a property, you are protected for additional 6 months. And we'll cover that in a little bit of detail here. So duties and responsibilities of the agent, and you agree to use your best due diligence and professionalism and help them find the home. And what you're going to do for them. You're going to consult with them, you assist them with locating the property, formulating acquisition strategies, negotiate the purchase agreement, and you're going to act solely in their best interest. And you're also bound by the code of ethics, honesty, etc. And I would go into detail of exactly what you're going to do for them. The duties of the buyer. During this term, the buyer agrees to work exclusively with you in purchasing a home and cooperate in providing you with information you need to move that forward, including financial information so they can be pre-approved, etc. And if they receive any other inquiries from real estate brokers or salespeople or sellers or builders, that this information is all going to go through you. There's a couple of very important things. The last two lines is that the buyer represents they have not entered into another agreement that would be in conflict with this. So they haven't signed an additional one. And I would make sure and cover that with them. And also that last line to reassure them, they're not bound to pay a commission. They're not bound to actually buy a property. This is if they do. Number 6 is the compensation. So we have two different parts in here for the compensation. Part of it is a percentage of what percentage you want. We will give you some guidance as to what those numbers look like and some suggestions, but you put the percentage of what you're going to be paid as a buyer's agent. Second one is a retainer fee, which would be a non-refundable retainer fee due upon signing the agreement, paid through the broker and some agents, and this has been used in areas pretty effectively. I will note that maybe if you're purchasing very low properties for an investor, helping them acquire very low priced properties for investor, you may jot in a minimum commission along with that. And that could be jotted in here, or probably more appropriately, it could be noted here, and then also under 15 additional terms. The payment would be upon closing. Then this last line on there is also a very important line. The buyer will receive a credit against the amount owed any commissions paid to a broker by the seller or seller's listing broker. So if there is an offer of compensation and that through the seller broker or seller, and that has been noted in the purchase agreement, then it would reduce what they owe on here. So that's a very important line to explain to them. The last line in number 5. Number 6, I already referenced, is the protection period. And basically what this says is if you showed them a property, any of those properties you showed them, you're protected for 6 months afterwards. And they would owe the commission for that time and be obligated to work with you for the purchase of that property. 7 is just kind of a protection that we're not making any warranties or representations of the house, the value or suitability. That basically is kind of like the MLS. The information is deemed reliable, but we're not guaranteeing it or warranting it. But they need to do their due diligence also. Potential conflicts. So there are 2 potential conflicts in here that you need to explain to the buyer. The first one is you could be representing other buyers looking for a very similar property. So although it's an exclusive relationship, it's not exclusive in the sense that they're not the only buyer you're working with. So there could be other buyers that you're working with looking for similar properties, and you wouldn't disclose anything to either one that would cause some kind of conflict, and that would be kept confidential. But there is that there is that potential. The second potential could be dual agency, that if the buyer made an offer on a property that was listed through the agent and or owned by the agent, there's that, or the secretary's broker, there's a potential of dual agency there, and you would have to go into detail and explain what that looks like. In that it does limit your services when you become a dual agent. You wouldn't have those full range of services. And actually, in the state of Ohio and Michigan, you cannot be a dual agent if it's a property you own. So keep that in mind. And also, it explains to them there, that following one, that they acknowledge they review this portion, and that they understand that the supervisor brokers and the company itself is automatically a dual agent, as they supervise agents on both sides of the transaction. Consent to delegate. This is designed, number 9, consent to delegate is designed to protect you when you're out of town, that you also can assign them another agent that can work with them during that time period when you're out of town or otherwise unavailable. So this does continue that perfection along. Number 10, leasing or options. So we don't have a separate agreement after leasing property. So instead we use this agreement. So we use this same agreement, and then anywhere it says purchase would just be lease, rent instead of buy. And so the terms just are interchangeable. Seller would switch to landlord. So it's just interchangeable there. We decided to make it simple and not have additional agreements out there. Indemnification, number 11, is really designed to protect us. They agreed to hold us harmless for any cost or claims arising out of this document. And they can't obligate us to have to pay anything. So that is just a protection of the company. Termination. So 12 is important in that the agent or the buyer can terminate this agreement anytime with written notice. So there's a couple things that can happen. So prior to the end of this, if they agree to terminate, or matter of fact, maybe you even have a buyer that you no longer want to work with, you can actually decide to enter an agreement to terminate this exclusive buyer's relationship agreement. But what it does do, it doesn't relieve them from the duty of, if you show them a property, they can't just terminate not to pay you. They still owe what's under Section 5, the commission. And they also, number 6, that 6-month protection period actually goes in here too. So they can't terminate and buy a property you showed them. But if it does turn out that's just a relationship that's not working, it does give the option for both parties to terminate. Miscellaneous, kind of the boilerplate language, that there's no oral agreements, and the agreement can only be modified or extended if it's done in writing by both parties. Fair housing is very important. Just don't skip over this. Make sure they understand that we're going to comply with all federal, state, and local fair housing laws. It lists what the various ones are, and it's something that we're believers in, and make sure they do fully understand that we're not going to steer them to certain properties, nor are we going to discriminate in how we go about how people are handled and treated. 15. So 15 could be some other things in there. Maybe one of them could be if there's a minimum commission. One of the things that could be in 15, maybe they're also buying commercial properties. You're helping with residential, and you would exclude any commercial properties they're looking for. Maybe you're helping them with just vacation properties, and it would eliminate properties in other states or other areas that you're not. That they're just contracting with you to find them a vacation property, but not their other single-family residence. Or if you're licensed in Ohio, they could be using a different agent in Michigan for vacation properties, or vice versa. And make sure anything that you just want to clarify goes in there. It is a pretty simple agreement. Please review it, and thank you for listening.